My name is Elizabeth Thompson, and I'm 27 years old. I've been married to James for 5 years, and together we have a 4-year-old son named Jack. Initially, I worked full-time after our marriage, but now I transitioned to a part-time role at the same workplace where James is employed. James and I began dating due to his persistent pursuit, which eventually led to our marriage. However, things changed after we tied the knot. James, once kind, became domineering, adopting a mentality of complacency once he had caught me. His younger sister, Jennifer, who is about to turn 20, became a frequent presence in our lives. Despite our age difference, James indulged her every whim, making me feel like a mere housemate catering to her demands. Jennifer's visits were often untimely and unannounced, and she never brought anything with her. Upon arrival, she would ignore me, as if it were a normal occurrence. James, on the other hand, welcomed her warmly, offering her our meals, even if they were meant for just the three of us. Whenever I raised concerns about the limited food, James would insist that I share my portion with Jennifer, blaming me for not anticipating her arrival. Although Jennifer would offer insincere apologies when prompted by James, it was evident that she enjoyed his unwavering support and care more than any genuine remorse. I found myself constantly sidelined, even during meals, as Jennifer would exclude both Jack and me from the table, insisting on private conversations with James. This exclusion extended to everyday tasks, as James and Jennifer seemed content to let me handle everything alone. I'd often felt like an invisible presence in my own home, relegated to the role of a housemaid, while they enjoyed each other's company. One evening, as I was preparing to bathe Jack, James demanded that I fetch a specific dessert from a downtown bakery, despite the late hour. When I hesitated, citing Jack's bedtime routine, Jennifer joined in, pressuring me to comply with James's wishes. Fearing further confrontation, I reluctantly agreed, leaving Jack behind as I rushed to fulfill their request. As I stepped out of the house, I overheard James threatening me with divorce if I dared to defy him again, loud enough for Jack to hear. Despite his tender age, Jack's concerned expression mirrored my own fears and frustrations. I fought back tears as I turned to Jack, asking him, "What kind of cake do you want, Jack?" His eyes, cloudy with disappointment, lit up as he replied, "Mommy, I want a cake with lots of apples." We chatted animatedly about cake flavors on our way to the bakery, momentarily distracting me from the hurtful words. Arriving just before closing time, we found the selection limited. Nonetheless, I purchased 2 slices of strawberry sponge cake and 1 slice of the fruit-covered cake Jack desired. Eager to fulfill his wish, back home, I set the cakes on plates and served James and Jennifer before attending to Jack. To my dismay, Jennifer commented, "That cake looks more delicious," eyeing Jack's choice. James, without hesitation, swapped Jack's cake for Jennifer's, dismissing Jack's protest. When Jack cried out, James callously stated, "I bought that cake with my own money, so you don't have the right to choose." Enraged by his cruelty, I confronted them, only to be met with James's threat of divorce once again. Jack, his tears subsiding, looked at me with concern. After a moment's hesitation, he bravely began to eat the cake Jennifer was supposed to have. "Mummy, this cake is delicious. I'm glad I got this one," Jack forced a smile, masking his true feelings. Seeing 3 adults imposing such hardship on a child stirred something within me. In response to Jack's feigned enjoyment, I suggested we eat in another room, away from the toxic atmosphere. Despite James's protests, I took Jack to the other room, allowing him to savor his cake in peace. Ignoring my husband and Jennifer, we enjoyed our time together, finding solace in each other's company. That night, we slept in Jack's bed, finding comfort in our bond. The next morning, as I awoke to start the day, Jennifer had already departed. While tending to James and Jack, I heard Jack crying. Rushing to him, I discovered his porcelain piggy bank, a gift from my father, shattered, its contents missing. Every night, Jack would bid goodnight to that piggy bank, a cherished routine now shattered. I had watched Jack bid goodnight to his piggy bank the previous evening, a small ritual he cherished. With a sinking feeling, I suspected James, who was in the living room, might know something about its sudden demise. So without delay, I questioned him. His response was callous, lacking any hint of remorse. She just needed a bit of money, so she broke the piggy bank, he stated indifferently, as if it were inconsequential. As Jack cried, I tried to console him, but soon found myself overcome with tears, unable to hold back the flood of emotion. I could endure the mistreatment from James and Jennifer, but seeing Jack left unprotected and wondering what he meant to James filled me with a sadness and anger I had never known. A mix of emotions surged within me, overwhelming my composure. As Jack and I wept, James chided, "Don't make me feel gloomy first thing in the morning," his words laced with irritation. Losing my patience, I confronted him openly, condemning his actions. "Don't you think what you did is wrong, even seeing Jack crying like this?" I exclaimed, breaking my resolve to shield Jack from marital discord. James, without a word, retrieved a document from the bedroom, a divorce form. "Shoving it at me," he declared. "If you're not satisfied with what I say and do, let's get a divorce," before storming off to work. Jack, who had never before cried over matters involving James and Jennifer, had been inconsolable since last night. I, too, had surpassed the limits of my patience. "Jack, let's take a break from daycare today, okay?" I suggested, hoping to provide him some comfort. With a resounding yay, Jack eagerly agreed, thrilled at the prospect of spending the date with me. As he nestled on my knee, his innocent gaze filled me with a sense of serenity, reminding me of the boundless patience harbored within a child's heart. Together, we decided to indulge in a day of play, to release the pent-up frustrations that weighed heavily upon us. Though I knew it would inconvenience my work, I felt it was the best course of action for Jack. After explaining the situation to my employer, we spent the day at the park, exhausting ourselves with laughter and games. By lunchtime, we returned home, where Jack, unusually clingy, nestled in my lap like a baby, finding solace in our shared embrace. I had originally planned to tackle some household chores while Jack napped. However, sensing the significance of the day, I decided to seek solace in watching Jack's peaceful slumber instead. Suddenly, the sound of the front door unlocking startled me. It was too early for James to be home. Hastily grabbing a nearby bag, I retreated to the bedroom closet, cradling Jack in my arms. Straining my ears, I discerned a familiar voice, Jennifer. She seemed to be searching for something, her rummaging filling the air with tension. Peeking through the slightly opened closet door, I observed Jennifer's actions and listened to her muttered frustrations. After a flurry of noisy activity, she made a phone call, expressing her inability to find what she was looking for. With a resigned sigh, she mentioned bro, before finally leaving and locking the door behind her. Emerging from the closet, I gently laid Jack on the bed, pondering the intrusion. What could James and Jennifer be searching for? And why did Jennifer have a key? I felt a wave of unease, as if James had become a stranger. In a rush, I packed Jack's essentials into the bag I had grabbed. Just as I finished, Jack stirred awake. "Jack, let's go to Grandpa's house," I said, taking his hand and hastily making our way to the station. Within moments, we were on a train headed to my parents' home, just 2 stops away. Arriving unannounced, my parents were surprised to see us. Jack wasted no time in playing with the family dog, his laughter easing my tension. As I explained the unsettling events to my parents, I couldn't shake the feeling of fear that lingered. I wondered if Jennifer's search was for something personal, perhaps my banking card from my single days. I became increasingly convinced that the missing item Jennifer and possibly James were searching for was indeed my banking card from my single days. This suspicion stemmed from the fact that I had once run a successful online shop for handmade goods, which had flourished with the help of friends I'd invited into the business. As my shop gained popularity and recognition, I had made plans for my trusted friends to manage it while I focused on motherhood. Balancing part-time office work with my responsibilities at home, I had kept my role as the company's president hidden from James. Despite his knowledge of my entrepreneurial past, I hadn't disclosed my continued involvement in the business. This secrecy stemmed from issues that arose after our marriage. James, who had a habit of spending his entire salary with no savings, had pressured me to become a full-time homemaker. Unwilling to accept his terms, we had settled on my working part-time. However, he had insisted I sign a contract limiting my claims to marital property, leaving me financially vulnerable. Throughout our marriage, I had received only a meager allowance for household expenses, covering the child's needs from my own earnings. James' presumption that I still had savings from my single days likely fueled his and Jennifer's search for my banking card. Nevertheless, I had taken precautions to safeguard my assets. I had a separate savings account for our child, to which I regularly contributed. The banking card they sought would yield nothing, as I had stored it in the family safe at my parents' home, following my father's advice. However, another concern arose when Jack tearfully confessed to breaking a piggy bank gifted by my father, failing to save money as promised. This infuriated my father, who was on the verge of confronting James when my mother intervened, urging caution. With no concrete evidence, acting rashly could worsen the situation, especially given James's casual mentions of divorce. This insight prompted me to reassess the situation, considering the implications of my husband's actions and Jennifer's unexpected intrusion. Fearing that James might exploit any perceived wrongdoing on our part to his advantage in the divorce, I made the decision to record their conversation, hoping to uncover their true intentions. In the meantime, my parents sought advice from a trusted family lawyer, a longtime friend of my father. Upon our return home, I began preparing dinner as usual, with my phone discreetly recording the unfolding events. True to expectations, James's first question was about the whereabouts of the banking card. When I pressed for an explanation, the conversation quickly escalated. He grew visibly agitated, demanding all my part-time earnings, citing my sister's supposed troubles as justification. Refusing to comply, I explained that I was saving for our child's future. In response, James thrust divorce papers at me, accusing me of arrogance and implying his sister's importance over Jack's well-being. Silently, I halted my dinner preparations, stashing the divorce papers in the bag I had packed earlier. Taking Jack's hand, I headed for the door, ignoring James' ultimatum. He warned me not to return, emphasizing his seriousness about the divorce, citing his discomfort with Jennifer's unrestricted access to our home. Leaving behind the familiarity of our home, I was bombarded with calls and emails from James, all of which I ignored as we made our way to my parents' house. There, I shared the recording with them and presented the divorce papers James had given me. Discussing our options, my parents acknowledged the potential harm a divorce could inflict on Jack's tender heart. Lost in contemplation, Jack's innocent request for food broke through the tension. My mother swiftly prepared his favorite dish, hamburgers, tears welling in my eyes as I realized the depth of my emotions. The floodgates of my emotions burst open, and I found myself unable to stem the tears. Jack's enjoyment of the hamburger was palpable, his grin stretching from ear to ear as he expressed his wish to have Grandma's hamburgers every day. "It's because Grandma fills them with so much love," he proclaimed, offering me a bite-sized piece with an earnest smile. As I tasted the familiar flavors, Jack's tender words melted my heart even further. "This hamburger is filled with love. Isn't it tasty, Mommy? Please don't cry," he pleaded, his concern touching me deeply. But his compassion only brought forth more tears from me. Sensing my distress, my father intervened, explaining to Jack that my tears were tears of joy, moved by his thoughtful gesture. He reassured Jack that family moments like these were precious and brought immense happiness. In a poignant moment, Jack expressed his understanding, feeling more love from our family than from his father. Embracing the concept of divorce with a maturity beyond his years, he found solace in the warmth of our family. Even back at my parents' house, Jack found comfort in our aging dog Max, declaring him as his little brother. With a sense of resolution, I made the decision to proceed with the divorce, knowing it was the best path for our family's well-being. The following day, as Jack slept soundly beside my father and Max, I shared a bed with my mother, finding solace in the familiar comfort of her presence. We reminisced about cherished childhood memories until sleep claimed us. Upon waking, I braced myself for the flurry of messages from James. Over 200 missed calls and emails awaited me, ranging from harsh criticisms to desperate pleas for reconciliation. Despite the uncertainty, I remained steadfast in my decision to prioritize the happiness and stability of our family. Feeling the weight of the situation, I switched off my phone once again, temporarily shutting out the chaos of messages and calls. Later that afternoon, my lawyer arrived, and we delved into the intricacies of my predicament, solidifying my resolve to proceed with the divorce. With solemnity, we signed the necessary documents, setting the wheels of legal separation in motion. The following day, my lawyer met with James to discuss the terms of our divorce. 2 days later, he returned to my parents' house with updates. The outcome was revealing and disheartening. Jennifer's troubles ran deep, stemming from a shopping addiction and involvement with questionable establishments. James, acting as her guarantor, had been entangled in her financial mess. Their plan to utilize my savings to alleviate their debts was laid bare. Despite his earlier resistance to the divorce, James appeared to have a change of heart, expressing regret and sorrow. He agreed to a fair child support arrangement for Jack, acknowledging his responsibility. In a brief but emotional conversation, James confessed his misguided priorities and misplaced loyalty to Jennifer. He lamented the strained relationship with Jack and expressed a desire for reconciliation. However, I remained resolute in my decision to move forward with the divorce, firmly closing the door on any chance of reconciliation. After our conversation, I embraced a fresh start, leaning on the support of my parents as I navigated the transition. Jack's well-being remained my priority, and I ensured his smooth transition to a new daycare. Meanwhile, I revitalized my career as a businesswoman, seizing the opportunity for personal growth and empowerment. As for James and Jennifer, I could no longer remain silent about their actions. I informed my in-laws, who, in a justified fury, decided to sever ties with them. Now living in modest circumstances, James and Jennifer faced the consequences of their choices, their once strong bond now fractured by blame and resentment. Their downfall served as my own form of retribution, a reminder of the consequences of betrayal and greed.